What if I told you the global economy is 72 hours away from a permanent oil shutdown? Trump says the pipelines will explode. Iran says they'll take out 4 wells for every 1 hit. And the satellite data? It's being manipulated by the government as we speak. Hello and welcome. I am Rick Orban. And you have started watching The Truth Global. All right, let's get into the weeds of what's actually happening in the Middle East right now, because the official version and the ground reality are 2 completely different movies. Honestly, it's wild how much is being swept under the rug. NBC just dropped a massive exposure using leaked US Army internal data and open source intel that basically proves Iran did way more damage to US bases than anyone in Washington wants to admit. We're talking about extensive damage that was conveniently downplayed for the cameras. And look, if you want the real story behind the headlines before the algorithms bury it, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. This isn't just about broken buildings. It's about a massive shift in who actually holds the cards in 2026. This was not happening in isolation though. While the US was trying to manage the narrative, Iran pulled off something straight out of a movie. They took these ancient F-5 fighter planes. I'm talking stuff from the Shah's era, basically museum pieces from the time of Adam, and flew them right into the Bushrang base in Kuwait. You'd think modern US tech, like the Patriot defense systems, would swat them like flies, right? Wrong. They failed. These pilots went on what everyone assumed was a suicide mission against 5th-gen fighters and the world's best surface-to-air missiles, carried out the hit, and actually made it back. It's a total shocker because on paper, those planes shouldn't even be flying, let alone thwarting high-tech defenses. Elsewhere, the battle isn't just in the sky, it's in the data. You've got to realize that the Western satellite companies are basically on speed dial for the US government. They've been managing the lexicon, telling firms like Mazar to hold off on sharing images or to use words like damaged instead of destroyed to keep the public calm. It's total media management. But this time, they got caught. Chinese satellite firms like Mizar Vision started releasing the raw footage first, forcing US channels to finally admit the truth. It shows how desperate the situation is when you're literally trying to hide the holes in your own backyard from your own citizens. At the same time, Donald Trump is out here doing his usual thing, dropping threats on social media like it's a reality show. He's claiming that within 72 hours, Iranian pipelines are just going to explode on their own because of the pressure. It's a classic half-truth. Like sure, if you can't sell your oil and your storage hits the 150 million barrel limit, you might have to shut down. And restarting those wells costs millions. But 72 hours? Come on. Even the latest satellite shots of Karg Island show 3 massive tankers loading up right now. They aren't stopping. They're just maneuvering around the drama. Trump's no-pressure stance is basically psychological warfare, but the math just doesn't add up. This is where things connect to your wallet. Iran's vice president basically laughed off the 72-hour threat and countered with a 1-for-4 warning. You hit one of our wells, we take out 4 of yours in the region, and it's working. The economic casualties are piling up way faster than Trump admits. We aren't just talking about gas for your car. Diesel and jet fuel prices are hitting beyond redemption levels. Long-distance trucking is failing, and jet fuel exports from the Gulf have collapsed by nearly 80%. When Richard Haass, the former head of the Council on Foreign Relations, tells you the Strait of Hormuz closure is putting the global economy in an indefensible position, you know the business-as-usual vibe is a lie. This internal tension is causing a literal civil war inside the Pentagon. There's a report in Nation magazine basically saying Trump and Hegseth are at war with their own military. They're purging anyone who tells them the real situation and keeping only the sweet talkers. It's like a cat scratching a pillar. They're being humiliated abroad by Iran's defiance, so they're taking it out on their own generals at home. The morale is tanking because the guys on the ground know the Patriot systems failed and the base damage is real, while the guys in the suits are busy tweeting about 72-hour miracles. Meanwhile, over in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is doing everything he can to keep this fire burning. He's terrified of going to jail, and as long as the security situation exists, he doesn't have to show up in court. He's begging President Herzog for a pardon, but Herzog isn't biting yet. He told Bibi that an apology requires a conviction first, and if he gets a pardon, he has to quit active politics forever. So Netanyahu's play is to ensure no peace deal happens, even though back-channel talks are actually heating up in Pakistan. It's a desperate attempt to stay relevant by keeping the region on the brink of total collapse. This all comes down to a massive showdown in the US Congress. Even though the Republicans have the majority, some senators are starting to look at the diesel shortages and the 80% jet fuel collapse and thinking, wait, is this worth it? A few of them might actually turn against Trump to withdraw his emergency war powers. At the same time, a new security architecture is being built in Islamabad that includes the Persian Gulf countries, nations that felt left out of the old JCPOA. They want a deal where they actually have a seat at the table, so no one can pull out on a whim again. The clock is ticking, and the next vote in Congress will decide if we're heading for a long-term disaster or a messy exit.